Back in my student days, when people asked my friends and me what we wanted to do, we would say we want to make good music with good people. And I think that's an enormously charming answer. But somewhere along the line, it started to seem naive. Um, you get out into the real world and you have to sort of take gigs playing music you don't want to play with musicians that you don't want to be playing with for any number of reasons. And I kind of just looked around at a certain point and found that I was surrounded by people who, it's almost like one has to become sufficiently jaded to become a professional. And I don't think that's satisfactory. If you are going to spend a life not even playing the music that you want to play, and you have to deal with sort of office politics and status-hungry colleagues who are sort of politicking and gossiping, then I think you may as well just get a real job, because there are many better ways to make money than being a musician. And so why bother? I mean, it's a kind of rhetorical question because, of course, people become professional musicians and then it's their job, and you do have to put food on the table. And to some degree that's going to be necessary. But I would like to try to build something greater than that. There's this address that Albert Einstein gave to, I think it's for Max Planck's Nobel, when Max Planck became a Nobel laureate or something. I think maybe Einstein gave a little speech, but it's sort of in this book that I have as an essay. Let me try to find it, and I want to read some of it for you. I'm using papyrus as a bookmark here. It's called Principles of Research. And no, it was actually just delivered at a celebration of Max Planck's 60th birthday, so my bad. So this is just the opening of it. This is from Einstein. In the temple of science are many mansions, and various indeed are they that dwell therein, and the motives that have led them thither. Many take to science out of a joyful sense of superior intellectual power. Science is their own special sport, to which they look for vivid experience and the satisfaction of ambition. Many others are to be found in the temple who have offered the products of their brains on this altar for purely utilitarian purposes. Were an angel of the Lord to come and drive all the people belonging to these two categories out of the temple, the assemblage would be seriously depleted, but there would still be some men of both present and past times left inside. Our Planck is one of them, and that is why we love him. I'm quite aware that we have just now lightheartedly expelled in imagination many excellent men who are largely, perhaps chiefly, responsible for the building of the temple of science. And in many cases our angel would find it a pretty ticklish job to decide. But of one thing I feel sure. If the types we have just expelled were the only types there were, the temple would have never come to be, any more than a forest can grow which contains of nothing but creepers. For these people, any sphere of human activity will do if it comes to a point. Whether they become engineers, officers, tradesmen, or scientists depends on circumstances. Now let us have another look at those who have found favor with the angel. Most of them are somewhat odd, uncommunicative, solitary fellows, really less like each other in spite of these common characteristics than the hosts of the rejected. What has brought them to the temple? That is a difficult question, and no single answer will cover it. To begin with, I believe with Schopenhauer that one of the strongest motives that leads men to art and science is escape from everyday life with its painful crudity and hopeless dreariness from the fetters of one's own ever-shifting desires. The finely tempered nature longs to escape from personal life into the world of objective perception and thought. This desire may be compared with the townsman's irresistible longing to escape from his noisy, cramped surroundings into the silence of high mountains, where the eye ranges freely through the still, pure air and fondly traces out the restful contours apparently built for eternity. He goes on with some more sort of aesthetic musings, But my point really is that, I think that it would be worth seeking out that third type of person, the type of person who finds themselves in the temple of science, or in my case, music, or just the temple of knowledge broadly, let's say, not for ambition or for status or money or power, or anything like that, but for something ineffable, and I don't want to say it's just for pure love of music, say, because I think it's possible to love music and still be, one of these sort of people who plays music for these sort of, because they like being good at music. That's kind of the first type of person, and that's the most common person. And if I were, to be a little bit disparaging, I would say this is the most common type of person that you would see in orchestras. People who like being good at a thing, and really, whatever they do, you have the sense that they would be really good at it because they're industrious and hardworking and smart. But not that the people in the other two kinds are not, any of those things, by the way. But where am I going with this? I always get lost at some point in these videos, but that's why I'm, trying to keep making them. There was a temple of music. Landowska had a temple of ancient music just outside of Paris. I think from like the late 1920s until 1940, when it was when she had to flee, being a Polish Jew, and the Nazis pillaged it. And she sort of acquired this land outside of Paris and commissioned, and I think even designed, maybe not. But anyway, it was a sort of beautiful space to play concerts with natural light, and make recordings and give master classes, and just sort of be there with people who really love music, right? And it for the time that it was active, it was very popular, and it sort of drew a congregation of the of some of the most interesting minds, not just musicians, but connoisseurs of music and professionals, but also like painters and architects and just intellectuals in general, who would all come there almost as a pilgrimage, right, in the summers, and it's almost like it's like it was like a scene, right, and that kind of thing seems impossible to do right now, because of the way that in this economy, it seems like it would be impossible with the state of arts funding and the state of sort of the arts in general. But times change, but the principle doesn't have to, and I think that it is not only possible, but entirely feasible, and to recreate this temple of ancient music, to rebuild this temple of ancient music. And I think, the way that we can start is through media, right? And, to sort of, build a concert hall and recording space, and house a collection of fine instruments, and, attract people to that place would be a sort of unfathomable expense. But, if everyone who was really interested in this kind of thing, and it's worth sort of thinking about what that entails, right? It's what kind of person would go to the temple of ancient music. Of course, someone who loves music, but also someone who probably is quite tasteful, refined in their taste, and probably quite dissatisfied with their general sort of daily surroundings, and it's not your average kind of person is my point, really, that would find themselves there. It's a rather rare sort, And that makes it kind of also difficult to get enough of those kinds of people in one place. And yeah, so I think this is the kind of thing that media is good at doing, in the absence of, you know, aristocratic levels of money, and you know, really sort of bustling scenes like Paris. You know, well, I guess this is a good time to sort of pivot and sort of start trying to answer the question of what I'm trying to do here, which is that, you know, by making recordings, you know, with like-minded musicians, and by sort of writing and talking and, you know, just thinking out loud and publishing and being public about my thoughts and ideas and my music, I'm hoping to sort of light beacons, right, to find like-minded people. And by doing it publicly, I'm hoping to encourage those like-minded people to do the same, because the cost of publication right now is relatively cheap. It's almost free, you know. I mean, of course, to have access to, you know, phones and the internet, and of course to instruments, there's a sort of baseline level of money that's required. But I'm assuming if you're watching this video, you know, on YouTube, and you care about music, you're at that level. And, you know, not every video can be catered to everyone, so here we are. But anyway, I digress. What I'm trying to do is light beacons to find like-minded people, and what I'm sort of betting on, in a way I'm betting my life on, is that it's possible to do this in a way that's actually financially viable as well, right? I'm hoping that, you know, how many people do we really need to have like a scene where we're all sort of playing with each other, talking to each other, and just thinking together, and having fun, you know, and playing, and sort of funding it, you know, and funding each other in small ways, right? Like through like micro patronage, which basically everyone is involved in at some point, at some level on the internet. You know, is it 1,000 people, 2,000 people? It's not actually that many people. Because we're individuals and not institutions, and we can be light on our feet, you know. And this is something that I think I want to say that the arts organizations get it wrong, but maybe the correct frame is that it's an advantage that we have over arts organizations, which is that we don't actually need that much money. But even more than that, like, you know, if you look at how, you know, like a Baroque orchestra on Instagram is sort of promoting itself, you know, I think they're rather going about it the wrong way, because they're seeking to, you're looking for like vanity metrics at a certain point, right? Like likes and followers and views and whatever. But if you're optimizing for that, which, you know, they don't even do a great job of getting that, by the way. But if you're optimizing for that, you're really optimizing for the equivalent of, you know, a sort of common passerby, right? And that's not necessarily who you want to be, you know, playing for. You know, I think it's worthwhile considering the kind of audience that you want to cultivate. And, you know, part of the reason I'm making these sort of like, you know, kind of rambly videos is that they require a sort of intellectual effort for you on your part. You know, you have to sort of follow my train of thought, and as you see me thinking, you have to also think. And you know, so it's kind of like if you find yourself here at this point in the video, then you're the kind of person that I want to hang out with. You know, put another way, if two people find themselves at the top of a mountain, you know, they don't need to say anything to each other to know that they're both mountaineers. So yeah, I think it's quite possible to you know, be very public with you know, the music that you want to be making, and sort of being passionate about it and talking about it, and to some degree, like educating people about it, but not in a sort of, sort of traditional way. And just sort of thinking and being in public. I think it's possible to find, these, very few people who are, the kinds of professionals and connoisseurs that you want to be around. And that's going to be different for everyone. Everyone can have their own little, I think, everyone can have their own little corner in this sort of temple of music. You can sort of be around the people that you want to be around. And yeah, that is really, to some degree, it's just maths, right? I mean, it's, if the kind of person that I'm looking for is like 0.0001% of people, that's still, tens of thousands of people. I'm not good at math, so that's sketchy, but you get the idea. There are through media and through the sort of distribution problem that the web solves. I really believe that it's possible to find people who are like-minded and that we can all sort of play together in this in our corner of this temple of music, and that we can actually sort of make good music with good people and for good people, people who really appreciate what you're doing, and not just sort of trying to make a recording and try to get it seen and listened to by the most number of people so that that you can have 100,000 likes on Instagram or whatever. I would rather find 1,000 people who really care about this and care about funding it, and then be part of a scene that I too will help to sort of fund and build up, and together I think we can make something really special. And part of the reason I'm being so public about it, or starting to be so public about it, is that it's going to take a long time, and I think it's going to take a lot of people, and they also need to be doing this, and I want to search for them, and I want them to find me, and I want to sort of build a scene where we can, or be part of a scene where we can all be encouraging each other to sort of be interesting and play and think in public, and just kind of see where that goes. So yeah, this is kind of fairly rambly, but I think it was perhaps a decent first attempt at sort of getting at something of what I'm trying to do in the world. But yeah, we'll see where it goes from here. I gotta get practicing, so peace.